Hey friends, welcome to Getting Started with Flutter Hive tutorial. Today we'll dive into Hive, a fast, lightweight, NoSQL database that has been working perfectly for storing data in our Flutter apps locally. On August this year, the author of Hive, Simon Choi, who happens to be the author of Isa as well, shared that he'll be investing more time in the continuous development of Hive, which happens to be the current pre-release version 4.0.0. With this update, it shows that there's a growth trajectory for Hive, so why not dive into how it works together before the big version release. So in our tutorial, we'll create a calendar app and manage our events through the calendar, and all this will be stored and retrieved from our Hive database. The user will have the option to create and also select a category for their events, and we'll also be able to enter our specific information for our event, which will be stored in the Hive database. Also, in the process of creating our event, we'll have the option to upload a file, and we'll be able to see how we upload files in the Hive database. Once we add, we'll be able to see our events in the main screen. We can even decide to update the event name and click on update, and it will update the information that we have sent to Hive database. We'll see the events based on the different dates. This is where we'll get to see the process, the concept of querying, and also be able to see events based on a specific category. Let's start by creating a new Flutter application. We'll head over to our IDE and enter Flutter create calendar app. This will create an app for us. Now let's navigate to it. And here we have our project. Next thing we're going to do is we'll proceed to install the Hive dependencies in our Flutter application. So over at our terminal, let's just proceed to install them. Let's enter the command flutter pub add. We'll start by the first package will be Hive, and then we'll have Hive Flutter. So you see that you can actually implement Hive without Hive is not dependent on the Flutter framework. So Hive Flutter is more dependent on the Flutter framework, but you can also use Hive itself, which is this one, the first one. Then we're going to add development dependencies, which will be Hive generator and the build runner. This will help us in code generation. So let's enter. And there we have it. If we head over to our pubspec.yum, you'll get to see. So here we have our dependencies. And now that we have that, let's proceed to the next step. Now that we have Hive installed, let's initialize our database in the main.dat file. So we'll head over there. And all we have to do, we're going to do this in the main function, and all we have to do is add one line of code. So we'll set our main function as a sync, and then we'll proceed to call Hive class dot, and then we'll call the extension method init flutter. And this will do everything for us. It will initialize the Hive database for us. If you're not dependent on the Flutter framework, you can use the init extension method, but what you need to do, you'll have to specify the path. But with init Flutter, it has already handled that for us. Boxes in Hive are similar to tables in a database. They help us organize and store our data. So back to our code, we'll proceed to, on our main function, we'll proceed to configure a few things. First, we'll create some variables outside the main function. So we're going to have two boxes in our Hive database. One box will contain information about the categories. The other box will contain information about the events. So let's just define them here by using the late, because we won't be initializing them in this point, but within the main function. So we'll have a variable of type box, and we'll call it category box. Then we'll have another box that we will call event box. And there we have it. Now that we have those two, we want to give a name to our two boxes. So we'll just create string variables here. Category box name is equals to, categories. And then we'll have another one for events. Event box name is equals to events. There we have it. Now that we have those two, inside our main function, all we have to do is call our box and initialize it by passing in and calling the Hive class Hive dot and calling in the method open box. Then we'll pass the name of our box, which is category box name, and we'll do the same for event box. Will initialize it and define the name of the box, so it will be await Hive dot open box and name it event box name. And there we have it. That's a simple way of creating boxes. We just define variables of type box, and we've also defined strings that will represent the names of the boxes, and then we've just opened the boxes inside the main function. So next we're going to have a look at a few terminologies that are used in Hive that we'll get to interact with, starting with HiveObjects, which act as containers for specific types of data and allows us to store custom objects, or in our case, I would say structured data in our Hive database. So the beautiful thing about Hive is that you can actually store structured and unstructured data. In a box, you can have different types of key value pairs. So but now in our case, in this tutorial, we're going to we are going to create structured data. So for us to create that structured data, we need to design a custom object or a data model for our two entities, which is categories and event. The next thing we're going to look at will be the HiveTypes and HiveFields. So HiveTypes define the data types Hive can store. So all that we're going to do is that we're going to annotate our class or our data models with HiveType, so that we can inform that Hive that they should be able to store data of this type. Next will be HiveFields. HiveFields specify the fields within our data models, or also I may call them properties of our class, and they're similar to columns in a table in a relational database. And lastly, we'll have a look at type adapters. Think of an adapter as a bridge or a connector that helps our data model to smoothly move in and out of the Hive database. So it essentially translates our data objects into a format that the Hive database can understand and store efficiently, and this will dynamically be generated for us. You don't need to create it. We don't need to create it manually, but you don't need to worry about it unless you need to create it manually, where you need to add a few things for yourself, but this is not supported in this tutorial. So now let's proceed to our code and implement all these terminologies that we have talked about. So back to our code, we're going to proceed to create a new folder. And we're going to call it HiveObjects. And inside here, we're going to define two data models. The first one, we'll call it category.dat. So let's start with this. It will handle the category entity that's involved in our application. So first things first, we'll just create a simple class and call it category. So that's how we start. Next thing, we're going to extend our class to the Hive object. Great. So after doing that, so when we store our custom objects in Hive, when we extend this Hive object, it allows us to manage our objects easily, because this is a custom object that we're creating for ourselves, right? Hive doesn't automatically know what it is. It's not a primitive data type like int, string, and all that. So now that we have that, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to annotate our class at Hive type. And then what you need to do is that for a Hive type, you need to pass in a type ID to create a uniqueness of this class. So for in our case, so we're just going to enter 1, and then for the event, we're going to enter 2. And another thing will be adapter name, which you don't have to create because it will automatically pick the class name and concatenate it with the text adapter. So in short, what I mean is that it will define the type adapter for this specific class as category adapter. So in case you want to change the name, this is why you change it, but you don't have to. But I'll just add it here for those who want to later check on this. So now we have our adapter name. Next thing we're going to do is define our fields, or define our Hive fields, right? So the first thing, the only thing we're going to do is have in this category will be the name. In a Hive, they automatically auto increment or create an ID that's auto incremented for us as long as we don't add or define it. So our Hive field will be of type string, and we'll name it name. Then we're going to define the constructor of this class and just pass in dot name. There we have it. But now when we just define a variable string name, Hive won't be able to understand it, so we need to annotate it as well, Hive field. And then we also need to give it an index where it specifies the index of that specific field. So if we have another field which we'll get to see in the event class, we need to add a unique index for that, for each and every field that we have. So it tells Hive how to serialize and deserialize each and every field when saving or retrieving an object from the database. So simply put, the index just represents the position of the field in the serialization process. So this is all about serialization and deserialization, and this is implemented with the help of the type adapter, as we talked about what the type adapter is all about. So we are done with the class, the category class, but one thing we'll need to add, because we need code generation done by the Hive generator and the build runner, because what happens is that this code is generated in a way that Hive will understand. That's why we always have that. So we're going to create a part line line of code, and then we're going to define where the code that will be generated will be added or set. So that's all we have to do. So let's create the next class, which will be, let's see, event. So we'll have event.dart. So we'll proceed the same way. We'll create a simple class called event. Then we'll proceed to extend HiveObject. So there we have it. Next thing, we're going to define we're going to annotate our class HiveType, and we're going to give it the type ID of 2, and you can still define the adapter name, which I'll set to event adapter. Great. So what will be our fields? So we'll start by creating a string category. First, in this first field, we're just going to define it as string, but I'll get to show you what we're going to do this when we're talking about another concept in Hive. So just enter that, and then you have to make sure you annotate this fields or variables with Hive field, and then specify an index. So we'll give it to 0. So we're having an error because we haven't defined our constructor. Okay, now let's define the rest. Another thing that we'll need to store in our event event box will be date time, and then we'll proceed to annotate it. Give it 1. Let's add it in our constructor. Next, we'll have the event name. Let's annotate it. And add it to our constructor. Next, we'll have the event description. Let's annotate it. And add it to our constructor. Next, we're going to have file, which will be of type uint8 list, and call it file. Let's annotate it and give it 4, and let's give it the option for it to be nullable. That means a user can create an event with or without a file. Next, we're going to add so we have our HiveField, and lastly will be a boolean bool type called completed, and we'll annotate it as well and give it 5. So we'll just add this dot file. Sorry, this dot completed. So there we have it. Let's just delete this. So here's our data model for our event box. So we have all our fields, and we've decided to give them the index from 0 to as they increment by 1. And then we have our constructor. Our file will be nullable so that you can allow the user to create an event with or without a file. We have extended our Hive object so that you can be able to design a certain letter structure that Hive can understand, and added our Hive type, so we're good to go. So that's simply how we are creating. So let's just add, there's one more thing. Let's just add our part line part and define where we want the generated code to go to. So that's done. So we have our 2 data models. Now let's run our build runner. So we'll head over to the terminal and proceed to run build runner build. We had installed this package in the beginning. So let's see. Great. So our files have been created successfully. Now that we have our Hive objects, or our custom objects, if I may say, now we'll proceed to our main.dart. We had already defined our box, but now we can specify the type parameter. We want it to hold a certain type. Okay, so beginning from where we had defined our 2 boxes, we're going to pass in a type parameter of type category. So we'll just import it. And our event will be of type event. There we have it. So the next thing we're going to do is we'll proceed to our category box where we had defined it. We said await.open box. We also need to specify it over here, category and event. So we have specified that. And then another thing we want to do, we want to register our adapters. That one we have to do it manually. So we're going to come here and register our adapters. Hive.register adapter. so that you can be able to use this type of adapter. It comes in with specific methods, and we talked about how important they are in the process of serialization and deserialization processes. So we'll come here, we need to specify the type parameter as well. So we'll do that, and then we add in category adapter. There we have it, and close that. Then we're going to register the same for the event adapter. Register adapter, and we're going to pass in the type parameter as event, and we're going to call the event adapter. And there we have it. So we have implemented Hive objects. We have worked with HiveTypes. We have seen how HiveTypes are, what HiveType is. We have created some HiveFields for our specific classes or data models, and we have registered our adapters, and now we have updated our boxes not to just save any unstructured type of data, but it has to be of type category, and for event box has to be of type event. So any other value that's passed in, it will create an error, of course. So now let's proceed to the next part. So now let's have a look at relationships. Creating relationships between boxes allows us to link different sets of data, enabling more complex and organized data structures within Hive. And we can do this using Hive lists. So let's go back to our code and get to do that. So where we'll do this will be in our HiveObjects, where we had defined the event class. I had talked about this specific field. So instead of having the string category, we're going to link the event class with the category class through this field. So how we're going to define it, we're going to give it the type Hive list of type category, and then we're going to define the name as category. So that's what we're going to do. We just import the category class from here. So this is what we have imported, so that you can use it here. So this is how we're going to create a relationship between the event box and the category box per se. So because we have made a change, definitely this has been detected. So we need to run the build runner again. So let's do that. And we are good to go. So now that we have that, the next thing we're going to look at is CRUD operations. Let's dive into the creating and the reading, updating and the deleting of data within our Hive database. So how we're going to do that, back in our code, we're going to create a simple file called func.dat that will be our mixin class. And inside here, we're going to create all the math functions that we're going to interact, that will involve interacting with Hive methods. And these functions are the ones that we're going to use to integrate into our app interface. So for create, we're going to create a function that creates an event. And then we're going to also create a function that creates a category. So we're going to call our function add event. There we have it. And then we're going to proceed, let's just create a new event. So inside here, what are some of the things that we need? We'll need an object of type event passed here. So we just need to import that. And we'll also need a value of type category passed as well. We'll get to see how we inject the specific category inside the event class or Hive object per se, or into the box, or add it into the box, because we are creating. So now let's work on this. So the simple way to do this is, first we need to add this category. We need to add the category into this event. So how we'll do that, we'll just say event.category.add. It's expecting of type category, so we're going to say cat. Going to pass in our category. Next thing we're going to do is now add this specific event object that now holds the category as well. We're going to add it into our event box. So to do that, we need an async to set an async in our function, and then we'll proceed to call an await, and we'll say await event box, which we'll get it from our main.dart. .add, we just call the add method, and then we proceed to pass the event. And lastly, what we need to do is make sure to call call the save method. This save method is one that will persist this object, so you have to add this. If you don't add this, it won't persist the data that you have added here, so you won't find it, in short. Great. So next we're going to create a function that creates a new category. So we'll call it add category, and all we need to pass is an object of type category. So we'll proceed to call an async and then await, then we'll call the category box, the box that holds data of type category. So we'll get it from main.dart .add category. So this one is simply as that because it has, the reason why we had to add an extra line, and also we had to add these 2 lines is because we're interacting with a Hive list. So we need to all make sure we persist the data. But if it's just a simple class with just primitive data types, you just call the add method. So that's create. So next we're going to read. So for read, in this case, we're going to create a simple function. What we want to read are events. We're not reading all the events from the box. We're reading events by date. If you recall, when I was showcasing the app, whenever you click a specific date, it displays the events of that specific date. So let's create a function called get events by date. And then what we're expecting to be returned is a type of list of type event. Okay, so now let's work on our function. So what we need to be put as an argument is date time, because that's what we're going to use to go and get the events based on a specific date. Then we'll proceed to just implement a filter, which is, we're going to call the event box, pick all the values, and then we're going to call the where clause. And for the where clause, let's just change this to event. We're going to say where event.date is equals to date time, and then we set it to list. So let's just return this because it will return a type of list event. So that's how we do it, and that's how queries are done. So Hive does not really have a query language. It's very limited, as you have seen, like for this example. So for when it comes to querying in this tutorial, you'll get to see it in this concept where we're using where clauses. So this is the first one that shows the concept of queries. So now that we have looked at read, let's look at update. So for update, we're going to update an event. So we're going to call the function update event. Great. And then we're going to pass in the event object and the category object. So all we're going to do now is, we have our event, we want to clear. So a Hive list is like a list a specific type of list defined by Hive. So it's just look at it as a list. So it can hold more than for this case, a Hive list can hold more than one category, even three. But now what we want to do, since we're updating and we're just dealing with the one category for each event, for just to make sure that the code is inserted properly, we're clearing whatever is in the category first, and then we're proceeding to add whatever the user has updated or whatever is currently being passed. If they didn't update, then it should pass the category that was there initially. So what we're going to do, we're just going to say event category dot add cut. So we just cleared it first so that it doesn't even insert twice or thrice the same categories twice or thrice. So we just cleared it, then we've added it. Then after adding it, we proceed to call our event box. Let me just add a sync here, and I'll close this. Event box dot put. So for update, you use put. So we're going to put it in a specific key, and the key will get it from the object itself, event key, and then we're going to pass in the event because it will come now when it's updated. And now that we have that, because remember we're dealing with relationships here, we need to persist this object, so we just call the save method, and we are done. So that's update. We'll perform update functionality only on the event. Then let's look at delete. So we'll have a delete function, and inside all we need to pass the event object. So next we're going to just call the event box and call the delete method, and then we pass in the event, the key for that specific object, and it will delete it. So you'll notice that the methods are quite minimal. It helps in there isn't a lot of logic being implemented because the methods do it all. So we have done the CRUD operations. Another thing I want us to add would be, we want to be able to allow the user to search for anything, to search for an event. So let's create a simple function for that. So we're going to expect the user to return or pass a search word. And then, so what we're going to do inside here, we're going to go to our event box because we're going to be searching mainly on the event box. We pick all the values and then we call the where clause. So we have the event, and then we'll just say event dot, because mostly it will be of text format. So we want event dot event name dot contains the search word. Let me just close the semicolon first, or let's just pick this. But now we want the event description dot contains search word. Or another thing we would check is if event dot category, the first index, which we're just storing one category for each event, dot name dot contains the search word. So we're checking through those specific fields, the name, description, or the category name, if they have whichever word that the user has passed. So what we want to return over here will be a type of list event. So we need to call in the toList so that we can be able to return that. So we're able to return that. So it will be of type list event. So there we have our search functionality. Another thing we can do is that we are able to also like view events based on category. So we can create a function for that, get by category. And what we need to be passed will be the category itself in type string. So we're expecting to return a type of list of type event. So we'll just say head over to our event box, pick all the values, and then use the where clause to search whatever we need to search. So it will be event dot category 0 dot name dot contains the category, and we'll proceed to call to list. There we have it. So that's how we're going to get the list of events based on the category. So with that, we have performed all the operations, and we have also gotten the chance to look at how queries are done in Hive. It's as simple as that. It's not as complex. I don't know if some of you guys have interacted with ESA. I've gone through some of my ESA tutorials. As you can see how extensive ESA can be, and maybe that's one of the motivation that the author found in ESA to actually improve the section on query language. But as we've done the CRUD, and we've also done some filtering. So that's simply that. So let's proceed to the next part. Let's proceed to design our calendar app and integrate Hive into it, displaying and interacting with the data we have stored within our Hive database onto the app's interface. So back to our code, we'll proceed to the main.dart. We've already run our application and we can view it on our simulator. So in our main.dart, we'll proceed to work on my app. And I'll just delete the class homepage. So we'll name our title calendar app. And then we'll proceed to use the colors to deep purple accent. Let's go with that. It's not visible because we have removed the home, so let's work on that. So the next thing I'll do is create an initial root, and then I'm going to define my roots after. So this root will represent a specific class. Let's just create it. So I'll just create a new folder called widgets, and inside widgets I'm going to create a file called calendar.dart. So inside this calendar we're going to create a stateful widget called calendar, and we're going to hold a scaffold. So let's proceed to inject this here, and let's import it. And there we have our white screen. So now that we have that, another thing that I would like to add would be on our terminal, I'll just add the Google fonts. This is optional. Great. In our theme data, I'm going to define it. I'm going to define the text theme, context, Google fonts dot poppins dot family, font family. There we have it. Okay, let's restart our app. We are back. So we have set that, and this will represent the first root that will show, which is a calendar class. Another thing I would like to add while we're still on main.dat will be, we'll have some text fields, and I would like to design the outline input border. So, or yet when we reach there, we're going to actually add them. So we'll end up coming back to main.dat. So now that we have our calendar, let's design this. So inside our scaffold, we'll start by creating an up bar. Let's just remove the const. And inside our up bar, we'll just set the background. Let me just remove just a quick one. That just removes the flag, the banner at the top right. Okay, so next thing is we're going to have a title, and our title will hold a text widget that says calendar up. Let's design it. Okay, then let's minimize the size. That's better. So next thing we're going to do, we're just going to set center title to false. And then we're going to add our actions. So what we're going to have will be an icon button. There we have it. Let's just set the color. Better. Next thing we're going to work on is the body. Now that we have left the up bar, now let's work on the body. The main parent will be the single child scroll view, and inside the single child scroll view we'll have a child that holds a column. So let's define our children. So we'll start by displaying a calendar, and for that we're going to import a certain package for that. Flutter pub add table calendar. Now let's use it in our code. So we'll have table calendar, and we're going to specify the first day as, we'll use UTC, and we'll pass in the year as 2023, month January, day first. Another thing that we need to specify will be the last day, and we'll set it as datetime.utc. Let's just say 2030 first. Another thing that we need to specify is the forecast day, and then so let's define that at the top here. So we're going to say date time day selected is equals to datetime dot UTC. So we're going to have date time dot now dot year, date time dot now dot month, and date time dot now dot day. So that's how it looks. So let's pick this and define it here. And then we're also going to specify the current day as day selected. So focus day is that you will get to see on the calendar, it will highlight a specific day. That's what focus day. So focus on that specific day. It should be the current day or the day the user selects. And current day just means today's day. So we're going to have a function that will manage whatever the user will select. So there's a selected day and there's a forecast day. You may decide you want to pick whatever the user has selected, but you still want the forecast day to be today. So that's why the both of them are there. So what we're going to do when the user selects, we're going to say set state day selected is equals to selected day. So in our case, when a user selects a specific day, it will highlight the forecast day will be whatever the user has selected. So we've just done it once by setting the state of this variable, which has been set on both the two attributes. So as you can see, we are now able to see our calendar, and if I decide to select a specific day, as you can see, it focuses on whatever the user has selected, but if we decide to refresh, it picks the current day, which is 10th. Good. So now we have our table calendar ready. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a simple before we create a widget that will handle the list of events, let's create a simple outlined button. Good. And we're going to call it add event. Then let's just position it correctly, and I think we can use an icon instead. So if we use an icon, the child will be labeled, and then we need to define the icon. So our icon will be add, something like that. Yep, that's better. Now let's position our button using alignment dot bottom right. Better, but now we need to add some padding. It's on the far right, so we're just going to say only right. That's better. So that will be the functionality where when we the button where when the user clicks, it will direct us to a screen that will allow us to create a new event. Actually, that screen will be the one that will allow us to create a new event, to view an existing event, to update an event, and to delete. So all our CRUD operations will be done in that one screen. So let's finish on this first. So after that, what we need is to have over here, we'll have a display of a list of events for a specific day. So if we look at our simulator, for example, if I click on this, the events that will be shown here will be the list of events for this specific day, or if I click on this, for that specific day. So that's what we need. And since we'll get to update the state of this more often than not, I'll just create a new widget for it and call it event list dot. So let's work on this specific file. So we're going to have a stateless widget and call it event list. And for event list, we're going to have a list view. So let me just remove const. Delete this. So our list view we'll use .builder. So we need a number of factors here, starting with item builder. And for item builder, we will return a card. It will be a card, and our card will hold a child. So before we do anything, let me just set the shrink wrap so that we don't have to come back here because of an error. To do with the viewport, define physics to be never scrollable, so that it only doesn't, we don't want the list to scroll, we want the page itself to scroll. So we don't want any conflict on that part. Another thing that we'll do is we're going to come here and define, is it the item count? We're going to define the item count. Right now, let's just give it 4 because we want to see how the list looks like, right? And then for us to see it again, let's add this to our calendar. So I'll say const, and then we'll proceed to import it. Great. So there's nothing yet. Let's design our card so that we get to see something. So I'll just have a container, and then for a container we'll have a child called which will be a row. We'll be aligning items horizontally. So the first thing that we're going to have will be, we want to display the day. Let's do that. So we'll need a column inside here. So we're going to need the text date format. Oops, sorry. For date format, we need a specific package. Let's install it. Flutter pub add intl. Let's enter that. Okay, so that's installed. Just a minute. Now that we have it installed, let's proceed. So our column will hold two things. We'll hold the day and the date. So what we'll have is, so our text will be date format. Let's make sure we've imported it. Great. So we're going to get the day in text format, and then we're going to format we're going to format our date time dot now. Let's do that. So as you can see, it shows the day, Sunday. So as let's proceed as we continue to design our card. So let me just set the background to white. Great, and then let's just set the padding so it looks much better. Great. We're getting there. Yep, we're getting there. So next thing is let me add the intrinsic height so that there's no we don't experience any around this. Now that we have that, so we have a column that holds the day. Now let's do the same for, I'll pick this, and I'll have for, we want to see the date, so we just use D. There we have it. So now let's design our two text widgets. To do that, we just set call style, text style, so all we have to do is set the font weight, and for the day, we'll just set the font size to 20 and the color to deep purple accent. Let's see how that looks better. So we have our day and we have our date. Next thing we're going to add is, so we have our column there. We're just going to add a divider, but it will be a vertical divider. Set the color to deep purple accent. We'll set the thickness to 1, indent 10, sorry. Indent 10 and end indent 10. Let me add this const. Yep. Next will be another column. So we have a vertical divider here, indent 10 and indent 10. Why does it look too close? Let's see if I can add 20 here, how it would look. Okay, I understand what's going on. Let me add a padding to the left. Yeah, that's much better. So now let's continue. Now that we have that set, we'll have another column. That column will have the event name. Let's say maybe birthday party. And we'll have another one, another child, which will be an action chip that will represent the category of that specific event. So let's say maybe home. So let's design those two now that they're there. So for birthday party, we'll have the action chip cannot be seen. Let's work on that one first. So let's set the background to colors.deep purple accent. Getting there. The next thing we're going to do, let me just add the const here first, but because we have an on pressed, we'll end up removing it. And the next thing we need to add will be the color. So let's say we'll use the material state property. Colors.deep purple accent. There we have it. Nice. So let's clean up on that. So for action chip on our text, since we have home, we can style it and give it the colors.white. Let's see. No. Nope. Then let's add on pressed. With that, we have our action chip. Let's align our column. That's better. So what else? Let's set padding. It's too close to the vertical divider. Now that's better. So now we have our events. Taking the scenario that we have for events, we're able to see them. And let's close in by adding a few more things here. I'll just remove this. So let's continue. So we'll add a spacer to stretch out items from the left and the right. And we're going to add an button, an icon. Keyboard arrow right, and give it a color. Colors.deep purple accent. And there we have our final event list. That's how it will look whenever we're displaying events. So the next thing we're going to do now is, instead of displaying for or hard coding the for itself, we're going to proceed to display what we need to get, what we're getting from Hive database, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we need a few things from the calendar that will be passed as props over here. So first things is, let me just set a padding for this. Only at the top, need spacing there at the top. Let's set also at the right and left. Then another thing we're going to add will be, it's called a value listenable builder. It's a type of widget that's found in Flutter that helps rebuild parts of your UI in response to changes in a value listenable object, and this will be very effective when interacting with Hive. So before we add it into our main widget, let's proceed to check what we need to pass into our event list. So we'll start by passing in, let's see. I had mentioned that we're going to use that event list a lot. So one of the things I will need is a boolean, a bool variable called viewAll. So first we'll set it as false. Another thing that we'll need is filter. Are we going to use it for filtering? Yes. So we're going to use it for filtering. So we need to be able to handle whether whatever we're displaying is based on filtering or not. So we'll just set it as false first. Then another thing would be this. It's going to use also for searching purposes. and also it's going to be used for viewing all items. So instead of confusing you, let's just remove this ones first, and whatever we need to pass, the main thing that we need to pass will be the date. So let's just pass that first and see how it works. Instead of adding the other ones at the same time, we'll get to see how we add them. So for date, we'll pass in datetime.utc day selected dot year, day selected dot month, and day selected dot day. And for event list, it's expecting a props here, so let's just define it so that we get rid of the error. So we'll have final date time date, final date time date, and then we'll proceed to add it as required, this dot date. Let's remove the const. There we have it. Next thing we're going to do now that we have the date, where is it? Now that we have the date over here, let's now use it in our list view widget. So now that we are here, we're going to use a value listenable builder. We'll have a value listenable object that will hold the value that it receives from the Hive database, and it notifies its listeners with the values that has been changed. So that's how we're going to update our state in our event list. So how we do that is, first things first, we'll need to, this is where now we're going to interact with our event, our Hive objects, and also our boxes. So let me just import them first. So we'll have main dot dot, that's where our boxes are, and then we're going to use the Hive object event. So let's just add it here. Now let's design our value listenable builder. So it will be return value listenable builder. Okay, so now we have that. Next thing, we're going to design the builder. So for our builder, we are expecting a few things, but now we need to specify the type. So our type will be box event of type event. So we're only focusing on the event box. So with that, let's proceed to, on our builder, we'll pass in the context, the box, which will add it over, the box, and then we'll also add the widget. Then we're going to pick all this that we had created. We'll pick all this, paste it here. And then for value listenable, we're going to pass in event box dot listenable. Wait, I just missed. Okay, so here's our value listenable builder, and this is our value listenable object. That's the one that holds the values that will be returned from the event box in the Hive database, and then it will trigger the UI update. I hope that makes sense. So now that we have this, so this is the one that's going to trigger for us the UI whenever any change happens in the event box. Good. So we still have our lists displayed, and what we want to get is whatever is returned from Hive itself. So all that we're going to do now, we're going to create a variable of type, or that's a list object of type event, and then we're going to call it events is equals to, remember we had designed the functions that we're going to use. I'm just going to inject the mixin class here. Great. And then we just continue to call the specific function that we need, which will be in this case, actually we don't need this, because all I'm going to do is call the box, which is the event box, call all the values and set them to list. I'll get to show you where we're going to use a function in the specific in the mixin class. So now when we have this variable will hold all the list of events that's in the event box. That's what it means. So let's do a small check. So if events dot length is equals to 0, we'll do something over here, else we can return whatever we have designed. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we do this whether it's empty? So I'm going to install a common package that I tend to install over here. That's called Flutter pub add empty widget. Empty widget. That's the one we're going to use to design for us what to display to the user if there is no list available, there's no event. Great. So now back to our screen. All that we need to do is design it. So instead of returning leaving it empty, we'll design an empty widget, and inside this empty widget we'll set the image as null. We'll pick a package image which comes inbuilt by the package. Then we define the title as calendar. Subtitle will say no events to display. Then for title text style, we can we'll set the font size to 22, and then we set the color let's define the font weight. There we have it. And then after that we can also design the subtitle. So we'll have a text style and just set the font size to 14 and the color to color. There we have it. So if we save, we get to see it. It's quite big. Let me try and minimize it. Refactor. Let me pad it instead. Left, right, Or better yet, let me just remove this and put it in a sized box. Let's see how that looks. That's better, but it looks squeezed, but it's better. So we're able to review that from the calendar app, no events to display. The calendar app is quite big. Let me see if I can minimize it to 16. Yeah, that's better. So we're being told that there are no events to display based on this, and if we click on this, no events to display. So it's reading from the event box. So for us to see some list of events, the next action to do is to create the screen for creating an event, right? So now let's leave this place, head over to our widgets folder and create a new file called event dot and create our form. So we'll have a stateful widget and call it event details, and we'll proceed to design a scaffold. Great. So let me remove the const because we'll design the app bar. So our app bar, let me just add the app bar, then we get to view the screen. So I'll just set the background to colors.deep. Oops. Let's have that fast. And let's go back to our main.dart and we add a new root. So our root, we'll call it event details, which is this. Let me just design first the class that will hold our arguments. So we'll have class event arguments. So what we need to be passed to us will be the event object itself. Oops, wait. What will need to be passed will be the date time. So the day selected, and that's what we're going to use to store the event. So let's add the constructor. So there we have it. Another thing we need to add is our root name. I'll just call it event. Now back to our main.dart. Let's define our root. So it will be event detail dot root name. So let's import this class. Dot root name. There we have it. And let's proceed to first the calendar dot, and let's navigate to our new screen. So we'll just call navigator dot push named. In our event, we'll just proceed to call this class that will handle our arguments. So let's say event details dot root name, and then define the arguments. It will be event arguments, and what we'll be passing is the day selected, which is we already have a variable for that, so we're good to go. So if I decide to refresh this and click on add event, there we have our plain screen. Now let's work on it. We'll start by defining the title on the up bar. So we'll have a title that holds a text widget. Call it event. And then we're going to define our foreground. Save that. There we have it. Then we just define center. We don't have to do that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to define some actions. So in this class, we're going to handle creating a new event. We'll be able to read an existing event, and we'll be able to update an existing event and delete an existing event. So this specific class is doing a lot, the four main operations. So now for our actions, we're going to add a button for update and delete. Before that, let me just style this quickly. That's better. Then let's add our actions. So for our actions, we'll have an icon button. Const icon, icons.save. That's the one that's going to handle everything, the update operation. And then we're going to proceed to have another one for delete. There we have it. Great. So we'll come and enter the logic over here. First, let's finish up on designing the whole screen. So next thing will be our body. So our body will hold a form. Let's give it a key. We'll give it a key. Then we'll proceed to define a child, and our child will be a column that will hold children vertically, and we'll start by a text that says select category. Let's design it, and we'll give it a color. Then let's position it from the far left. And then we'll add padding to our color, to our form. So there we have it. I just selected the wrong theme. There we have it. Now let's work on the next thing. So the next thing will be a row. And for our row, we'll have two things. We'll have the option, a drop down that displays a list of categories from the category box in the Hive database. And then we'll also have an action where the user can be able to add a new category to the category box in the Hive database. Okay, so the first thing we'll have is the drop down. And for this drop down, it will we're going to wrap it with a value listenable builder as well. So it will be listening to any changes that are happening in the category box and updates our UI, triggers the UI, which is our drop down, to have all the list of categories from the category box. So we're just going to call that the value listenable builder. So let's define the type here, which will be box category. Sorry about that. Box category. Let's just import Hive there. So now that we have that, our value listenable will listen the category box for any changes. We have that. Now let's work on our builder. So our builder will hold context, box, and widget. Now let's work on our return. So our return will be a drop down button. Great. So let's just handle the onChanged. But let's just handle the items first. So our items will be, we'll pick all the values in the category box. We'll pick all the values from the category box, and then we get the list of categories. Now that we have that, the next thing we're going to do is map it. So we're going to have of type drop down menu item. Here we have it, of type category. There we have it. Let's see, I'll just type category. There we have it, pass to list. And then inside here, now we're going to have a category value, or a value of type category. So what we're going to do now that we have it, instead of an arrow function, let's proceed and set it like that. And now design our drop down menu item. And our drop down menu item, the child will be a text widget that will hold value. Remember, value is a category object, and the category has a property called name to get the name of the category. And another thing that will manage is the value. There we have it, which will be this value. That's what we're setting here. Now that we have this, another thing will be, let's handle the onChanged. Before we do that, we need a value here. Let's set the variable for that. So it will be of type category, and we'll call it drop down value. We'll pick it from there and paste it here. Great. And then we'll handle onChanged. It will be of type category, new value. So all we're just doing is setting the state depending on what the user has picked. There we have it. So now there's nothing to display, but better yet, we're going to add is expanded, so that once there are values, we can be able to view them. So we're having an issue with the constraints in terms of width. So to do that, we just proceed to a sized box. We proceed to a value listenable and add a sized box so that we manage the width. So I'll just define the width here. give it half of the width of the screen. If we refresh that and then I click on add event, as you can see, we're now okay. Let's just add padding for our row so the work doesn't look too congested. So we'll just set it on top and bottom. That's better. Now that we have that, we're going to now next add our elevated button. This elevated button will be the one that when the user clicks, they are able to add a new category. Let me just add a few aesthetics here. Color, add for the drop down. And then just icon. Okay, so we're done with the drop down now. You can leave that, and then now we go to our create the elevated button. And then we're going to have an icon, icons.add. There we have it. Let's just style it. Let's give it a shape of circle border, and then we proceed. Just set the background to the theme color that we are working with, and the foreground will be white. That's better. And then now that we have that on our row, let's just define our main axis to be space between. Beautiful. Okay, so let's work on this part first. So now we have the elevated button, and we've said we want to allow the user to create a new category. So let's create a function that will handle that. We'll just come here. Let's create a new function called create new category, and then I'll just pass it to the on pressed here. Let it stay there. Now let's work on this function. We'll need the build context because we're going to create an alert dialog. So we need the same context for that. So we'll say return show dialog. Great. And then for our builder, we're going to pass in the context. And then we're going to return an alert dialog. Now let's design an alert dialog. We'll have a title that will hold a text widget that says new category, and then let's style it. So we're going to have set the font weight to bold and set the size to 14. That's the title. Next we're going to have the content, and our content will hold a text form field. So let's give it a controller. So we'll just define a controller here. Controller, and call it category controller is equals to text editing controller. Let's pick that, proceed to our alert dialog. which is over here. Define the controller. We have an error somewhere. I just need to check where. Oh yeah, we need to pass the context. Okay, we're good. Okay, then in our text form field, let's just do a decoration on it and just define the input decoration. Inside here, we'll define the border as outline input border. Then let's define the label text that says add category. And lastly, let's design this label. So it will be text style. And we'll give it the colors dot deep purple accent. Before we get to see how it looks, let's add the actions. So for actions, we'll have two. We'll have an outlined button, and we'll have a first let's design it, and it will just state cancel. And once you click on cancel, all we want you to do is do a navigator.pop. Great, let's just design it a little bit. Style from, and we're going to give it a foreground color of deep purple accent. There we have it. Now let's design the second one, which is elevated button. And for our child, we're going to define the text widget, and it will just say add. Let's define the style. Elevated button style from, and we're just going to set the background as our theme color. Okay, so we have that. Let's refresh this and see how that looks. So when you click on add event, when you click on this, there is our alert dialog. So we want when the user enters an add category, when you click on add, it should add into the category box in the Hive database. And because we have a value listenable builder here, we'll be able to see it populate it will trigger the UI and be able to see the list of categories that we've inserted automatically. For add, let me just let's see, colors.white, so that you get to see the text. Great. Now let's add the logic. So where we're going to add the logic will be on pressed, and all we have to do, let me first check if we injected the mixing class here with func. If you remember, we already designed this. So back here in our onPressed, we'll proceed to check if the category controller dot text is not empty. Let's proceed to call the add category function in our mixing class, and what it needs is the string, the category name, that is. So we'll pass in the category controller dot text. There we have it. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Oh, we had decided to pass the an object of type category. Okay, that's fine. So all we have to do is call, design it, and the name will be that. Okay, and then once we've done that, we just do a navigator.pop. So here's the idea. The moment let me just refresh this again. The idea is the moment we click on this and add, this should also populate. So there are two things we're expecting. So let's see how that goes. So let's create a new category called home, and then we add. As you can see, we're able to see it. And even if I refresh it and go back to add event, I'll be able to see the list of categories. This is being read from Hive itself. Let's create another category like work. and add. And as you can see, we're able to see our categories. Now let's work on the next. We're already seeing how we're already interacting with Hive, so that's awesome. Now that we are done with our row, which was this whole thing, and let's proceed to create our other items in our form. So we'll need to display the day that the user has selected. So here's a catch. Let's see. When the user selects 12th, add event, it should show 12th. If the user selects 11th and we add an event, we should pick whatever the user has selected, in short. So let's do that. This is just more of a display. So we'll just have a row, and then we're going to have an icon that represents the date. Let's give it a color, colors.deep purple. And then another thing we're going to have will be now the text, and we'll just say date format. We're going to use a date format. Let's import the package and remove this date format dot. Let's design how we want the date to be displayed, more readable for the user in this case, because you're just displaying it and it's easier for them to confirm whether that's what the date that they actually wanted to pick. So remember, we had expect our props to be passed here, so let's handle it over here. We hadn't specified that or picked or we didn't get the arguments that are being passed to this root. So let's get it from here, is equals to model root dot of context settings arguments as event arguments. There we have it. So this is what we're going to use. Let's go back here and pass that dot day selected. As you can see, now that we have that, let's just style it a little bit, or even if we save right now, as you can see, we get to see the day that has been selected. Let me go back and pick maybe 13th. As you can see, we get to see it. Let me just finish up on styling the text a little bit. So style, text style. Let me set the font weight and then define the color. Much better. And then let me just define the padding. I think that's better. So that displays the date that the user has selected. Let's proceed to the next one, which will be a text form field. Let's define the controller for it. This will be for entering the event name. Let me also add the one for event description right here so that we get to design them together. Event description controller. Okay, back to our text form field, which is here. Let's add our controller. Then let's style it. our label will be label text will be event, enter event name, and then the label style we'll just have set the color. So there we have it. Great. So we'll get to enter event name. Before we do anything, let me just add padding to it. And then I'm just going to pick whatever I have designed here so that we don't have to recreate the same thing again. I just replace this with event description. And there we have it. Good. So next thing will be we want to allow the user to upload a file. So we're just going to use a list style, and what this list style will do, we're going to have a title that says upload file, and then our trailing will be an icon, icons dot maybe how does that look? Yep. Then we'll have on top. Great. So let me style this a little bit. So we'll have a title, the tile color, let's set it to our theme color. Our text color, let's set it to white. Our icon color, let's set it to white. How is that so far? Great. Then what else? Yep, I think that's all. So what we're going to do is we're going to install a package, Flutter pub add file picker, that will help us in handling uploading files or picking files from a gallery. Great. Now back to our project. So on top, let's work on this. So for on top, what we want to do first, we'll set this to async. We'll call our file picker, pick the result and define it as result is equals to do an await and call our file picker dot platform dot pick files. That's all we are doing, and then we'll proceed to check if the result is not equal to null. Let's proceed to define a file called file and then pick the path of that image and upload it to this file type. So let's just import this. Okay, so next thing, we need a type of uint8 list. I know I'm pronouncing it very wrong, in the wrong way, but you get what I mean. Uint, there we have it, and define it as, let's give it the name image bytes. So this is where we're going to store whatever the user has picked, is equals to file dot, we read them as bytes, and there we have it. Then we're just going to handle set state because I want when we click on this, we're able to see the image that the user has. But before we set that set state, let's just set up that section that we're talking about. Let's see. Is there anything that's missing? So if the result, we're able to read that. So now after the list style, let's define whatever I'm talking about, where we'll have image.memory, and it will pick whatever has been defined, which is image bytes. And then we'll just proceed to size it, just to make sure that it doesn't occupy the whole screen. But what if, yeah, that's the error that's what I wanted us to handle. So what if the image bytes is null? What do we do? So I'm just going to handle that is not equal to null. That's when we handle that. Else, we just return a sized box that's shrunk. We shrink it, and there we have it. So let's refresh this and see how that works. So when I click on add event and I click on upload file, missing plugging expectation, let's rerun this application again. Now let's do it again. Add event. If we click upload file, it opens for us our gallery and we'll be able to select something. So if we select on one, okay, so it's not displaying, and I think I know why. We had said we'll handle the state here. So let's just do that and save, and we get to see the image that we have, and we're holding it in a specific variable. With that done, let's now work on the next thing, which will be to allow the user to set whether they have completed if the event is fulfilled or not. So that will be a boolean, and we're going to use a switch list tile. So for our value, we're going to define a variable here that will store the data for that. Completed is equals to false. Then we're going to use this over here. I set it there, and then we're going to proceed to handle on change, where we're just going to set state and let the completed variable hold whatever the user has set. There we have it, but now we need to add a text for it. So there's that. Let's give a title, const text, event completed, and then let's style it. Colors dot deep purple, accent font size. There we have it. Great. And lastly, we now need the button. Almost done. So let's just define our elevated button, and then our child will be a text add. So let's design our button. Style elevated button dot style from. So we define the foreground as white because we're going to set the background as deep purple accent. And then let's proceed to define the shape, const rounded rectangle border, and then let's define the fixed size to be size media query dot of context We're defining the width. And then we'll define the height as 50. That looks much better. And then now let's position our button properly. So we're just going to use the align widget. Alignment.center. So alignment.center. Better. Let's just set the padding at the top. Perfect. So that's done. So now let's work on the logic when we click on pressed. Okay, so what we want to do is first we're going to set this to async, and then we're going to check if our form key, the current state, is valid. That is, there are values within the values have been inserted, and the drop down value is not equal to null. That means the user has selected a category. We proceed to call our add event function, and it's expecting an event object and a category object. So let's design our event object. So there it is, and then we'll also have a category object. So let's input the necessary. So for event, in this section, what we're going to do, we're going to define that we're going to pass in a Hive list of type category. So we're going to have an Hive list that will contain this a category inside, and then when we head over to our function, this is when now we add that specific category. But first you have to call this, you have to initiate that specific field, this field. You need to enter this first. So another way to do it is to specify this in the event in this specific function, but we just injected it straight here, so that when we come here, the next thing we do is just adding that specific category. The next thing we're going to do, we're trying to avoid to adding logic. We want all the logic to be in the mixing class. So the next thing we need is the date. So it will be date time. We are formatting our date time to UTC. So how we'll do that is, let me enter this. So we'll pick the selected date. Wait, the days, let's see. Back in our, when we're calling the from the calendar, when we're calling the event, let's see, I think I need to check on something. So when we're passing this, already the date time is in UTC. Great. So all we have to do is proceed to call the argument. Is it day selected or date? Let's see. Oh, this is event list. Oh my goodness. Oh, so I'm supposed to look at this. Day selected, yes. So that's okay. Checking the wrong thing. So you're picking whatever has been passed, which is day selected, which, as we can see from the calendar, when we're passing it, it's already set to, is it? Let me see. Day selected. Let's go selected day. Now I think we need to format it to I think it's in UTC if I'm not wrong. Let's see. I'm supposed to check there. So for day selected, I think we'll format this just to make sure that we have the right day selected. I'll just copy all this. Yeah, just to make sure that it's actually converted. Then for event name, we'll get it from event name text. Event description, we'll get it from event description controller. And then completed, that's where we have it. Then for category, we're going to specify the drop down value. Wait, it's actually, this is already a category object, so that's what we're supposed to pass, the drop down value. That it's already a category object, that's what we're going to pass, whatever the user has selected. So now that we've done that, we just need to do it's more of a user experience. So let's inform the user if they have been able to add. So I'll just add in a new package called pub add status alert so that I can use it. So what I'm going to do is check if the context is mounted. We're going to call this specific widget, so we'll just call it status alert, and all we do is .show. We pass in the context, then we pass in the duration, which will just give it seconds of 2 seconds, and then we pass in the title, which we'll call it calendar app. Then we'll pass in a subtitle and say event added. Then we'll proceed to specify an icon configuration. Icons.done, and then we're going to add max width to 60. So there we have it. Let's just refresh this, and then after doing that, we're going to proceed to do a navigator.pop. So we'll head over to the main screen. Great. So here's the idea, guys. So when we head over here, we'll proceed to create our event. Okay, once we have created it, when we do a navigator.pop, come back to our screen. In this the specific event day that we had selected should be able to view the event over here. So let's try that. So I'll pick home and do deep cleaning a lot, need 5 hours. Then let's upload a simple file, and then we leave it as not completed. So let's click on add. Okay, so it's viewing the event list because it has detected that there's data in the event box, but as you can see, we did not specify. It still has like the dummy data, so let's handle that. So I'll just close this. This will be so brief. So all I have to do is in our list view, I think we have the item count instead of 4. We'll have events, which is this dot length. So let's just pass that fast and see. So as you can see, it has one event in the event box. Great. Now let's format it to get the exact information that we need. Starting with where is it? We start with date time. So for the date time, we'll just pass in form events. We pick the index and we pick date That's all we're doing. So let's copy this and do the same to that. So if you click on save, it's producing the right thing, which is Sunday 10th, as you can see from the calendar itself. And then the next thing we're going to update is a birthday party text, and we'll have events.index.event name, and then we just remove the const. There we have it, deep cleaning, and then lastly we'll have events.index.category, and it's a Hive list, so it's like a list, so we need to pick index0.name, move the const, pass in the const, and there we have it, which is home. That's correct. So we're able to say let's create a few more. So add event, let me select on a different day, like on a Friday, add event. So as you can see, it's picking the correct information. Work, demo, presentation, preparation. Let's upload a file there, and then let's set it as add. So as you can see, it's displaying all of them no matter which day selected. So that's another thing we'll need to handle on the event list. So let me show you how to do that. So over at the event list, we were getting our list events by calling box.values.toList. We'll get to use that, yes, but we need to use a specific function to be able to get based by date. We had designed that, if you remember. So instead of this, I'll just comment it, and what we're going to call is get events by date, and then we'll proceed to call date. So if we save on that, as you can see, it's displaying correctly. If I select on 8th, it's able to display the event that we had created for 8th. 10th, it's correct. If it's any other, there's no event on these other ones, but on 10th it's there, so our function is working well. Great. So the next thing we're going to do is we're able to add an event perfectly. So now what we want, I mentioned that this specific screen will handle the whole CRUD, all the CRUD operations. So the next thing we're going to do, we want to be able to click and view details about this. So we want to read information about this specific event, right? So now what we're going to do is back in our event details class, we're going to manage a few things. So for event list, first let's add an either a gesture detector or an inkwell on our card over here. Let's add an inkwell so that when a user selects, we're able to handle what should happen next. So what we're going to do is we're going to direct the user to the event details screen, which is where we add an event, but we'll pass for it a few parameters, okay? And for us to be able to know, first let me just call navigator.push named, and then we have the event details, and then we have some arguments, event arguments. There we have it. But what we're going to pass here is events. Let me see, events, pick the index dot date. We're going to pick the date of this specific event and pass it to the event details. Great. So if we click on, let's just refresh the changes that we've made. If I click on this on 10th, if I click on this, it will show 10th. Let me show you again. If we click on 8th, it should show 8th when we're proceeding to click over here. Okay, but if you click on 12th and we click on add event, it will pick. So it's just taking whatever. So in this section, we're also handling the part where when we click on this specific, it displays the correct date of that specific event. Now let's add the information of this event, the rest of the information of this event. So on our event list, I will proceed to, actually let's first create those props that we're expecting here. We have an event, we need an event object, the object of type event, that specific event that we have clicked, we need it so that we can display. And then another thing that we need is a bool that we'll call view, just to inform that specific, the event details screen, that we are viewing in some information. So if we are viewing, we want to display the information of this specific event within the different parts. From selecting category, it shows the specific category of that event, the event name, the event is, so we're able to input the information of that event. So that's what it's all about. So now let's add them in our constructor. So we'll have required this dot view, and then we'll have this dot event, because we've set it to nullable, so we don't we have that. So next thing, now that we have this, let's head over here. It will require a few parameters. So for view, we're going to say true. And then for event, we'll pass in events index like that. So that will hold the object of this specific event. We're expecting another error here because we've added a few more things, which is a view. So here we'll just say false. We're not handling that on the calendar class. So if you refresh this, we won't see anything yet because now we're not handling it, the event details. Let's do that. So once we have this, what we want to do is say if the arguments or the prop view is true, we want to manage the information in that specific class. So we'll start by the drop down. So the drop down value will be args.event.category 0. I'll just refresh this. Let's see if it's actually working. So this is home. As you can see, it is selected as home. We had Friday, which was work. As you can see, I hope it makes sense now what I'm trying to do. And then let's add the rest. So we'll have selected date. We already have date handled. So we need the event name controller.text is equals to args.event name, and then let's add the same for event description. So as you can see, our information is being inputted. And then another thing we need is image bytes, because we are storing the images in our Hive database. So we'll have event.file. Let's let me refresh that. So we'll handle that in a few. So the next thing will be completed is equals to args.event.completed. And there we have it. So, and then just to make sure we're not messing things up, else if it's not viewing, we just want to make sure that the cell is it the selected day? No, I think everything is okay. So if it's we actually want to view or read, perform the read operation, we want all these to be set as so, but we can't see the image. Why? Let's see. The reason why we're not able to see the file, remember we had set the file as nullable. We can create an event without file, so we didn't add it here when we're creating the object. That's what happened. So we need to handle that. Let me see. This class of ours, I need to pass in here this dot file in our event, in our Hive object or in our custom object event. I've just added this dot file so that we expect it to pass, and if it's not passed, it's still okay because it's nullable. But we expect an error because we have changed code. So let's run the dot build runner, and we don't have any other errors within here, so it should work fast. So just run dot run build runner. Done. Almost. Done. So in our event, now when we're adding an event, we have that option to add our file. We didn't have it, so that's why our events, the images that we uploaded were not stored. Let's create another event so that you can see it happen. So let's add an event, and then we'll select work, pair programming, work on the basics. Let's upload a file. There we have it, and add. So if we decide to check on pair programming, here's our image. Yes, that's what we wanted. Okay, now let's what else do we need to make sure that it's handled? So completed is set, all of them are false. We want to now work on the update feature. So I think that's all. But now when we're viewing, we don't want the add button to be active because we don't want to add it again. It's already existing. So either we want to delete it or update that specific event. So what we're going to do is let's handle it over here and just say we pick the attribute that's being parsed, which is view, and check if it's actually true. Set the button to null, else let's proceed with the function. So it will look something, yes, it should look something like that, so that we're not supposed to add the event again. So we're just setting that as null. And now we've been able to read an operation. We will perform a read operation, right? So the next thing will be to update. So we already have our event, we already have the information displayed. We can change a few things and then we see if we can update. And the update button, the one that performs that, is this. So let's add logic to it and we should be done. So where is our, over here, it's at the top. One of the actions, here we have it. So you have the save. Let's work on it. Let's create a simple function over here. So one of our functions are this, and we're going to call it update existing event. We'll need the argument and the build context. Inside here, we're just going to pick the arguments, each and every one. and then we're going to initialize them to whatever the user may have changed. We pick every category, every property, and check and add to the existing properties. So args event dot date is equals to, so that one won't change really, but let's just add it. Let's handle every property in the event class. So event name will be whatever the user will whatever will be displayed in the event name controller. Same thing for event description. The user can also update a file. And even set if the events are completed or not. Now that we have defined that, let's call the update event from our mixin class, and then we'll pass the new event, the updated event object. And then for category, remember we're passing the category separately, then we handle it in the function, the update event function. Now that we have done that, we just want to add a message to send a message to the user. Simply dot show let's define the duration, seconds, title, subtitle, event updated, configuration, and lastly the max width. And after that we'll do a navigator dot pop. Great. Let's refresh our app and see if we're able to update. So there is a deep cleaning. We get to see the information. Oh, we didn't. We uploaded a file, but that was before we made the change. So let's try and upload a file here. We should check why it's not displaying fast. So I'm going to handle another check so that however much we are updating, it shouldn't reset the state to whatever we passed here. So we just want to do a specific check with just a boolean variable. I'm going to do this. I'm going to specify bool viewed is equals to false. So initially, so once we have been able to set this state, the state of all these ones, we want to set the viewed to true. So it doesn't always have to return the state to whatever this is. That means the user will never have a chance to update the information that is in that form. So, and then now when we come here, we say if args.view, that means if it is true and it has not been viewed once, that's when it shows a state. But of course, as you can see, first it's false. We come here, args.view, we set the state, then we set it to true. That means here if it's actually false. So since we have set it to true, it will no longer set the state again and again. So the user has the option to actually change information over here. So that's all I've done. It's just a small check. So let's go back to and do it again. So we have home. I was trying to upload a file. Let's see how that goes. As you can see now, we can upload our file. What it was doing is that I was uploading a file, but now it was resetting that state of the variable that handles the file to the initial one, but now we're able to handle that. Let's change to deep cleaning session. I maybe need 7 hours with family, and let's say completed, and then we click on update. Oh wow, I just remembered something. We created a very beautiful function over here. We haven't passed it. Crazy, right? Okay, so we just proceed to call it here, and we want to make sure that only when this property, the props view, is true, do we proceed to do this. Else set it to null, just to manage when you can actually call that specific use that specific icon button. So whatever is needed here is the other arguments and the context. So we've saved that. So let's try again to save, and event has been updated. As you can see, deep cleaning session, and if we come inside here, I've added more information. We had another event here, demo, and I would like to add a new category like school. Add, and then I proceed to change this event to school. And yeah, let's just save that. So as you can see, it updates to school. So update operations are working in the Hive database. So the next thing we want to do is now delete. So what I'm going to do before I forget, no, let me just create the function here. So it will be delete method, and what I'll need will be the build context and the event arguments. Now let's work on this. So what we want to do for user experience, we just want to ask the user if they're sure, if they really want to delete it, right? We wouldn't want a user to just click and then it deletes. What if they didn't want to, it was a mistake or something? So we need to confirm with the user first, right? So we'll pass in the build context, and then inside here we're going to return an alert dialog. She already passed the that. Okay, that's okay. Then we're going to design an alert dialog. So we will have const text, and our text will be the calendar. Let's design it. Give it a font weight bold, and font size 14. Content, we'll just ask the user, do you want to delete, oh boy, sorry, do you want to delete this event? Yeah. And then we'll just proceed to add our actions. So our actions will be an elevated button, const text that says yes, and we'll have an outlined button, const text no. Okay, for yes, we'll proceed to call the delete. How do you do this? In our func, in our mixing class, we had the delete event That's what we need. How comes we can't see it? Okay, I know why. Our function is in the wrong place. It should be inside here. So we need the delete event, and we need to pass the object. So we'll pass in the argument and specify it and pick the specific event. There we have it. And then we'll just proceed to design the user experience where we inform the user that it has been deleted. So I'll just do this quickly. And then we make sure we do a navigator dot pop and another navigator dot pop, because this will help us get out of the alert dialog. But we also need to go back to the main screen because we're expecting this event to be deleted. So that's simply how we're going to do it. Let's style the button, elevated button. Let's style from, and set the background color to our theme color. There we have it. For onPressed, all we have to do is call navigator.pop. There we have it, and then let's give it a style, outlined button.style from, and we'll define the foreground as deep purple accent. Okay, I think that's we're good to go. So let me just make sure I've called this method where it's supposed to be called. Here we have it, and we can proceed to call it. So we'll pass in the context, the arguments, and we want to make sure that this is only being called when we are viewing a specific event. Else null. So let's refresh that and proceed to, so let's go on 10th. We have 2 events. Let's try and delete the deep cleaning one. So when you click on delete, it asks us, do you want to delete this event? We can proceed to say yes. So when I click on yes, it will delete for us. Remember the value listener builder, it's actually listening to our boxes, so you find that it automatically updates by itself. So we've been able to perform the delete operation, which is great. So this is what's performing the handling of state, the value listenable builder. Great. So we have the create, read, update, and delete. The next thing we're going to do now is, let's see if we are done with the whole. So we have delete, update. Let's update this event to completed. So when you click on this, as you can see, our records are being updated in the Hive database properly. We have our add. So we can handle this search, but there's just let me just check if there's something, maybe something small that we can update. Let me show you. Back to our event dot upload file. let's handle this in a way that for this trailing, let me show you how we can do it. We can say if images dot, oh my goodness, if image bytes dot is not equal to null, icons. So we're just trying to create some user experience here. Let me show you how that works. So as you can see, there's an image, so it ticks off. Let me create a new one again. Add an event. Let's select work. Publish app. Need to be done soon. So as you can see, the icon is currently asking the user to upload. So when you click on this and click on that, a specific image, it shows that it has uploaded. That's just the only effect I wanted to add. So there we have it. Great. Now that we are done, let's proceed to an important feature, which is search. We want to be able to allow the user to search a specific event. So back to our calendar class. Oops. Here we have it. We had created a icon button for that. So we're going to handle some state over here. What we're going to do is we'll have a boolean variable, bool search is equals to false. Then we'll proceed here and set state search is equals to true. Now that we've handled that, what we want to do is on our up bar, we want to check if the search is equals to true. We want to define a text field. Sorry. Let's just define the text editing controller for it and call it search controller, and then text editing controller. There we have it. Then we pass the controller. Sorry. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do, let's just add aesthetics to this so that you can view it from the up bar. And we want to manage on change. Whatever the user inserts, we use that to search in the Hive database. And then we're going to define the style, and we'll have colors.white. Lastly, let's define the decoration. That informs the user to search here. Let's just add the style, which will be font weight and font size. There we have it. So once we have that, let's try and see how that looks. So when I click on search, it will allow me to enter some text here. That's what we have done. But I can see we can't view that specific text. Let me set the colors.white. Now we can see it. Great. The next thing I'm going to do is, where is our here is our icon button. So what I'm also going to do, so that you can be able to go back to the previous state, I'm going to check if the search is true. Review the icon search. If the search is true, we want to revert, have another icon button that can help us revert back. So let me show you what I mean. So this will be cancel, and then our search will be false. That's what I mean. So it will change the icon to this, so that when I click on this, it returns the state, so we'll be able to have our app back. That's just part of it. And then the next thing we're going to do is, for the process of searching, we don't want to see the calendar. So the only thing the simple way to do this, I'm going to wrap it with a visibility widget. And then for the visible attribute, I'm just going to pass in if the search is not true. So that means if it's false. So if I decide to click on this, we shouldn't see the calendar. And also I shouldn't see this as well, the add event. So I'll also handle that. Or better yet, combine these two. I should have done that before setting the visibility. Instead of having it twice, I just pick these two and put them in a column, and then I now set the visibility visible if the search is not true. That means if it's false. Great. And if I go back, we'll get to see our main screen. So it's still there. So when the user searches, so what are we supposed to display? Because right now it's just displaying the list of events for this specific date. But what we need here in this process is to see all the events, and then as the user changes, it's able to filter through based on what the user has inserted. So let's work on that. So we'll need to another argument or another props. We'll need to pass another props here, and I think I'll call it first let's handle the part where we need to view all this, right? Okay, so we'll need a bool. Let's call it view all and set it as false first, and then on our event list we'll add, we're supposed to create it first on the event list so that it expects it. So all I'm going to do is define a prop that's expected called all, and just say required this dot all, and then I'll come here and say all view all. Great. So based on whatever we pass here, so when I click on search, which is this, when I click on search, the search is equals to true, and view all will be equal to true. What I'm saying is that I want to view all of them, right? Let me check on, is there anywhere else we're using event list? Okay, so when we click on search, that's when the view all will be true. So back to our event list, we're going to handle this part. Remember we had commented this part. This is where we're going to need it in this process. So all I'm doing is do a check args dot all if all is true, that means I want to see all of them. That's when I call this of that. Else let's call by date. That's all I've done. So let me just refresh this so that we see if our app will respond accordingly. So now we're seeing the list of events for a specific date, right? If we click on this, it should show us all the list of events, and currently we have just created 3. So it's working great. Now the next thing we want to do is now handle whatever the user will insert. Where will we find this? Here it is, on change. But we'll need on change. If on change, let's set state. And what we're going to set state on is what we're basically going to do here. First, we're going to handle a state where we're telling event list class that we don't want to view all. So we're going to specify view all as false. We don't want to view all lists. And then we're going to have another prop here to inform the event list class that what we're doing here is filtering. So just call it filter. Let me just add this required the dot filter. And then the reason why we need this is because we're going to use a different function. There's get events by date. There's this other one that gets all of them. But now we want to do another check. If filter is true, if we're actually filtering, let's proceed to call the search event function that we had designed. So search event, let me just save that. And what the search event expects is a search word, right? So we also need to pass that as a props here. So string search term. And when we pass required this dot search term, and this is what we're going to pass here. So that's what we're doing. So we're expecting an error here because it's expecting some information. So we'll also have a bool filter is equals to false. So the moment I start changing or the user starts entering something, we want to set the filter is equals to true. And then over here on our event list, we need to pass a few things. Filter will be whatever will be held in the filter variable. And then we also need a search term, which will be whatever will be in the controller. There we have it. So let's see if this will change accordingly. So we are searching, we're able to see all the events. So if I decide to search demo, or if I decide to search something like peer, so let's go back to our function here, search event. So we're saying where event name dot contains, let's see, let me see how this is working again. Contain search name. Let me see. What if I try demo? It's the concept of uppercase and lowercase. Okay, let's see. So whatever we had was okay. So when I look for it's case sensitive. So now if I decide to search, maybe let's search for work, I'll get it if I enter it properly. Publish, there we have it. So our search is working, and we're using 3 factors. We're using event name, event description, and category to search through. So we're done with search. Another factor that we need to check on would be when I click on this, I want to be able to see a list of events for this specific category. So let's do that. So to avoid manipulating the event list so much, I'm just going to recreate another class similar to this one, but now it's going to handle things to do with the category. So let's create a new file, call it category.dart, and then we're going to call our class category detail. So we're going to hold a scaffold. We'll have an up bar. Define the background. Let's first pass it so that we get to see what we are designing. This will find it. We'll need to manage it in our event list. We had the option to add an what was it? An action chip. Here we have it. Here's our action chip. So when we click on it, we need to navigate to our new class or our new screen, and then it will display the events based on the type of category that we have selected. That's purely what it's doing. It's part of the filtering process. So we'll just do a navigator, but because this is a scaffold, we need to inject it. Add the root here. So we'll have category details, and then we need to specify the root. Static const root name is equals to category, and we need the arguments. Category argument. Category argument. All we need is that string, the category name. And let's create the constructor. There we have it. So back to our main, root name, context, category detail. Let's leave this. Now back here, we say navigator dot push named. We'll define our category detail and then specify the arguments. So we'll have category argument, and we'll pass in the name of the category that the specific event is in, the specific event that we'll select. So it will be events index the first index name. There we have it. Now let's close that and design this specific class. On our up bar, talking about category details. On our up bar, we want to specify the title. Let it hold a text widget, and we'll just write category. Then we want to pick the specific category that has been selected. So we need to get our arguments, the arguments passed on this root. There we have it. So to get it, we'll just call args dot category. Let me style it quickly. Style, text style. Just set the font weight and font size. So let's click on this specific category. And there we have it. It's set the foreground. Great. So now let's work on the body. So for the body, it will be quite similar to the event list. So instead of creating it again, let me just pick it from here. And then we make a few changes. Okay. Let's import the necessary. And then instead of event, no, we are getting list of events. That's correct. Let's just import it. We're okay. And then our event box is in main dot dot. The next thing is we're going to remove all this. So we're going to get events using the function get by category. So let's just inject our mixing class. And then we proceed to call the get by category. Then we'll pass in from our arguments, whatever has been passed in our props, we pick the category name. Great. So we're going to remove all this. And then we have this event details. We still want the user to be able to see the details of that specific event. Let's import our package. What else? Let's just remove this so that it doesn't end up being too recursive. Yeah, and we're done. I think we have an error here. Hive Flutter. Okay. Supposed to add the Hive Flutter, not the Hive package. So Hive Flutter package. So if we refresh, click on save. So we have that. So if I click on this, it will show me information about all the events that are based on the category work. If I click on Friday and click on school, it will show me that. Just to make sure that to explore further, let me add more events quickly. So I'll have let me add school, masters, big exam coming up. Let's upload and add. So that we have added on 6th. You can add something else like home, relocate, moving to an place. Let me add an image and add that. So if we proceed to like on 6th, if I want to see all the list of events and I click on school, I'll get to see them here. As you can see, these are different days. The reason why I wanted to create more events is because on 10th, if I click on it, you see it's the same date, and you might think we're just displaying a list of events by date, which is not the case. If you click on school, as you can see, these are different dates that have different events on different days that hold different information. So we're done with search. Those are the two filter concepts that we have done. Here are all our lists, and if we decide to search maybe with programming, as you can see, we're searching properly. If you want to search by category, you can search by category. So mainly we have designed the whole app. We have performed the CRUD operation, seen how it works, interacting in and out of Hive database. We've done some filtering operations as well. So let's proceed to the next part. So another great thing about Hive database, it provides security in terms of you can encrypt your boxes. So let's have a look at that and how that would work. Back to our code. Let me close all this, because what we're going to do, we'll be doing it in one file, which is a main.dat. So once we have initialized our Hive database, we can define our security measures. And one thing that we'll need a package called Flutter Secure Storage. So let's add that. Pub add Flutter Secure Storage. And that will help us in designing an encryption key that we will plug into our boxes. We have it done. So now we come here and we define create an instance for the Flutter Secure Storage. So we'll call it Secure Storage is equals to Flutter Secure Storage. So there we have it. And then now we're going to proceed and define an encryption string. So we'll just call it encryption key key string is equals to well, we have our sync here, great. So we'll just do an await secure storage dot read, and we want to define our key. We can set our key somewhere here for the tutorial purposes, but definitely it wouldn't be wise to just set it. You can even pick it from a cloud or something, or even better yet, instead of repeating it, we can just create one variable that will handle or have a record of that. So we'll just call it calendar and pass it here. Then we'll check if the encryption key is equals to null. We're going to design a key with Hive. It has a method called generate secure key, and then we proceed to write it on the secure storage dot write key, which will be the key calendar, and then the value will be of base 64, URL encode. Then we're going to encode our key. Let's see, because what we need to pass here is, let me just rename this. It was conflicting with another inbuilt variable that is called key. So now we have that. So we're just checking if the encryption key is null. We're going to generate a secure key with the help of Hive, and then we're going to write it in the and set a value for it using base 64. Now that we have that, we'll proceed to get the key, final key, is equals to secure storage dot read, and then we read our key. Then you're going to read define an encryption key unit, decode our key. Now let's decode the key and assign it to a variable. And there we have it, and this is what we're going to use. Let's make sure that doesn't return a null. Now that we have that, let's inject this variable into our attribute, which exists in when designing opening our box. So we'll pass in the encryption cipher. That's what it's called. And we'll call Hive as Hive AS cipher, and then pass in our encryption key. And we'll do the same for the event box. So that means whenever we're opening this box, we have to pass the encryption key for us to be able to open it. If by any chance the key is invalid, it will not be able to open the box. So that's a way of performing security in Hive, which is pretty simple and pretty easy. Now with that, looking at that, so let's head over to deployment, which is mainly we're going to look at compaction. So what compaction simply means, it's a process of optimizing and reducing the storage space occupied by the database. So this will only require one line of code. So over to our main.dat, where we have created our boxes, we can proceed to, whenever we open, we can proceed to compact our boxes by just running await category box.compact. And we can do the same for the event box. And that's as simple as that. Having looked at all features from boxes, HiveObjects, HiveTypes, and HiveFields type adapters, we have also looked at relationships, performed some filtering and also CRUD operations, and we have designed our whole app. And we have looked at security and deployment. Those are the basic concepts that we need to be able to get started with Hive. I'll be able to create some test cases, but I won't show them here. I'll share the GitHub repository in the description, in the a link to the GitHub repository in the description box below, and you'll be able to access the test cases. Will be included in the source code. So with that, guys, that's all we have, and I hope to see you on the next one.